Now I taught the weeping willow how to cry.
Okay, Johnny and I made several fishing trips to Bimini. I can remember at least three trips to Bimini starting in '83. But after the first fishing trip, we had flown over on a seaplane. And we kind of had a little rough landing because it was the water was rough when we landed and water was coming in the plane, and Johnny had to raise his legs up. And he says to me, well, you know, Henry, that was kind of a little rough. He says, would you mind if we flew back on a Learjet? I said, no, that's okay, John. So he called Nashville, he called his sister Reba and arranged to have a Learjet pick us up on South Bimini and flew us back. And we flew to Atlanta, and that's where he met June, and he let me off in Atlanta, and well, coincidentally, there was a guitar trade show in Atlanta, so I stayed in Atlanta for a week. But on the next fishing trip, which was in June, now Johnny was going to be roasted for a television show in Memphis, Tennessee, like the following month. I think the roast was sometime in July. And the roast was going to be held at the Peabody Hotel. So on a fishing trip, and just John and I sitting on a boat talking, he says, you're coming to my roast, aren't you? I said, I wouldn't miss that for nothing. He says, well, did you ever meet my friend Arthur Smith? And I said, John, I don't know who Arthur Smith is. So he proceeds to tell me. And he says, Arthur's an old Georgian boy. He said, Arthur wrote that song, Fourth Man in a Fire, which I sing on stage. I said, oh, now, okay. I said, I know the song. I said, but I never met Arthur. He said, well, he's going to be one of the roasters. And he said, I'm going to tell you a story about Arthur. He said, did you ever see that movie, Deliverance? I said, yeah, I've seen it. He says, did you ever notice that song on there called Dueling Banjos? I said, of course, it's the feature of it became a #1 country hit. He said, well, Arthur wrote the song. I said, wow. I said, pretty savvy guy. He said, yeah. He said, but the problem is when he wrote the song, it was called Dueling Guitars. I never heard of that. He said, neither did anybody else. It never went anywhere. But now somebody says, Arthur, you got to go see this movie, Deliverance. He says, I think that song that you wrote is in the movie. So now Johnny's imitating Arthur with his Georgian twang. He says, Arthur goes to the movie. He said, damn. He said, that's my song, and nobody's paying me no money. So Arthur goes to an attorney. The attorney says, Arthur, can you prove you wrote the song? He pulls out, yeah, here's all the papers. He said, boy, you have a great case of copyright infringement. Well, what do you mean? He says, we sue them, you get triple damages, plus legal fees. He says, but if I were you, I wouldn't do a damn thing now. Let it become a hit. Then we get them. He said, we always got them because you can prove you wrote the song. Song becomes a #1 country song. Now, Arthur makes a meeting with the president of, I don't know whether it's Paramount or Universal, whoever did the movie. Now, Arthur doesn't need the lawyer. He got the legal advice he needed. He just barges right into the guy's office, and Johnny's imitating Arthur, and he says, my name is Arthur Smith, slams his fist down on a man's desk. He says, you boys done stole my song. He says, and I wants my money. And I wants my money now. Well, with a little persuasion, Arthur gets his money. He gets a $3 or $4 million out-of-court settlement. And that's my introduction to a man named Arthur Smith. Okay, just from Johnny Cash telling the story. Well, now we fly to Nashville. We fly to Memphis. The roast is at the Peabody Hotel in Memphis, Tennessee. It's for a TV show. And Johnny Cash is receiving the Shalom Peace Award from the State of Israel. Johnny had made a movie in Israel called Gospel Road about the life of Christ. And he gave some of the proceeds to the State of Israel for letting him make the money, and the rest of the proceeds to the Billy Graham organization. So, that's why he's getting honored this night. There was only one flight, a direct flight from the New York area to Memphis, which I got. The flight left LaGuardia Airport. It was an early morning flight, and it got us in about 9:30 in the morning in Memphis. Well, who's on the plane but Waylon Jennings and his manager, David Trask? And I had known Waylon from being around John. John introduced me to him years ago. So I had a first-class seat, and so did Waylon and his manager. And after the flight takes off, Waylon looks up, Henry, is that you? Come on back here with us. So I walked back there. There was an empty seat, and Waylon said, boy, we're going to have a good old time at this roast. He says, I'm in charge of this. He said, this is the first time I've been in charge of anything. He just got off a cocaine habit. So he says, did you ever meet John J. Hooker? And I said, no, I don't know who John J. Hooker is. So he turns around, there's a gentleman sitting a couple seats up. He says, John J., come here. He says, John J., I want you to meet Henry. He says, we're all going to be roasters at this roast. So I'm introduced to John J. Hooker. John J. Hooker was a classy man back then, very handsome. I guess he was about 6'2" and wavy white hair, and his trademark was a three-piece suit and a gold-handled walking stick, and sometimes he'd wear a derby. But John J. was a politician. He ran for governor of Tennessee 2 or 3 times, and he lost 2 or 3 times. He was also the former president of STP Oil Company, and I believe the former president of United Press International. So I was kind of impressed with this other gentleman that I'm going to share the dais with. So now we land in Memphis, and Whalen says, hey guys, he says, I got a limo here, I'll take you all to the airport. I'll take you all to the hotel. And get in the car, and I'm sitting in the back with Whalen, and Whalen, out of clear blue sky, starts telling me about how he kicked his cocaine habit. He wanted the world to know, and he's telling me. He says, I bought this place out in Arizona. He says, we just had a little son named Shooter, and he says, I knew I was going to kill myself unless I got off this damn cocaine. He said, I just went cold turkey, and he said, damn, I kicked it. He says, I'm proud of what I did. That's why I'm in charge of this thing tonight. So, and we're talking, and now we get to the hotel probably around, I don't know, 10:30 or so in the morning. We had the whole day to kill because the roast wasn't until 7 o'clock that night, which was a black tie affair. So I turned to John J. and I turned to Whale, and I says, hey, you guys, have you ever been to Graceland? I says, I'd love to go. We have an afternoon. So Whale says, oh, I've been there plenty of time. Me and Elvis was good friends. Just like that. Me and Elvis was good friends. So I looked at John J. I says, how about you? He said, no. He said, let's go. Well, he had a secretary, his traveling secretary, and David Trask, who was Whalen's manager, says, hey, I'd like to go too. So we agreed that after we check in, we'd go meet in the lobby and take a taxi over to Graceland. We get in a cab and we head to Graceland, and I kind of was disappointed. I mean, after being at Johnny Cash's house, I mean, Graceland looked like a farmhouse. It was set very close to the road. It was surrounded by developments, and it was just, one big tourist attraction. But I still wanted to see it. So to get into Graceland, you had to check in and buy a ticket at a welcome center. And at the welcome center, you'd buy your ticket, and you could go in. Elvis's airplane was there, his tour bus was there, and some other things. You could buy artifacts, which was interesting. The problem was there was like a 4 or 5 hour wait to get into Graceland. Because this was, I think, the Thursday night of the 4th of July weekend. So Graceland was packed, and so was this dinner going to be packed. So I turned to John J. I said, John J., I don't want to wait 4 or 5 hours. And I says, you're a big shot. Get us in. Next thing I know, John J. Hooker calls the governor's office up. Within 15 minutes, a car comes to pick us up. We get our own tour guide, and we go. They had a tram that would take you back and forth from the Welcome Center to Graceland. And like I said, it was a 4 or 5 hour wait. We just got in this car and went in front of the whole tram, get a VIP escorted tour of Graceland. So now I believe John J. was the real deal.
Now I taught the weeping willow how to cry.